Welcome to Reflections, Monday's short-form studio feature ahead of Friday's Photo Walk podcast. Thoughtful observations on creativity and, well, just life, really. You'll find all 5 of this week's reflections on our Patreon channel, The Extra Mile. I wish to complain. I'm basing this title on the first few words of the letters that would flow into radio complaints programmes and local newspaper weekly columns. I wish to complain that the postman left my garden gate open last week as he was fleeing from my ever-so-friendly but equally ever-so-hungry Rottweiler cross velociraptor called Fluffy that we'd accidentally let out of its 30,000-volt safety pen. That sort of thing. I've never had cause to write into the complaints department myself, but a couple of recent minor scuffles in terms of premature ageing might have me reaching for my Parker fountain pen. A few years ago at Reading Station, after a long trip home from West Africa, burdened by exceptional tiredness and stinking of red wine, thanks to the passenger in front of me reclining far too suddenly and violently, delivering a full glass into my lap, I found myself trying to select a ticket to take me the rest of the journey home, having marvellously messed up the fare escaping out of Gatwick. I stood at the machine, wavering with exhaustion for a moment, when a young lady sidled up beside me, and in her best "I've spotted an old bloke who looks like he needs help and I'm just the Samaritan to offer it" calm manner, held onto my arm and asked, "Do you need some help?" in that way. That sort of treacly way that you talk to a 3-year-old when he or she has had an accident, if you know what I mean. I know she was trying to be charitable and I'm coming across all grumpy. But honestly, in one moment, I'd aged 20, possibly 30 years from where I thought I resided. I'm still dining out on that story, obviously through a straw. On Wednesday evening, last week this is, prior to the Zoom call we have once a month, I checked in with the head of IT Anxiety Suppression Department, namely that nice Neil Ford. I'd forgotten to engage the studio camera over Zoom, so all Neil had was my portrait that I'd uploaded a few years previous. "All I can see," said Neil, "is your really old portrait." "What do you mean, my really old portrait?" "Well, you look a lot older than the picture on display," he said indignantly. And then on Friday just gone, I called my mobile network supplier to see if I could take advantage of their ever-so-good "you need to upgrade now" offer. The same one they've been sending me in what feels like a blind consumer panic for 3 months. "Please, sir, can you buy some more?" The chap on the end of the phone obviously had some time on his hands, because he seemed, well, moderately interested in my day, what I had planned for the weekend, and the football scores from the previous weekend. "I just need to run some security checks," he said, after we'd run dry of loose conversation. "What's your date of birth?" I told him. He positively spluttered. I thought the poor chap had taken a digestive biscuit down the wrong tract and was about to require my end-of-life celebrancy services. "Ha! You don't sound that old," he said, minus filter. "What do you mean, sound that old?" I countered. "Well, you sound much younger than you are." Much, I thought. Much? Next week I turn 58. I remember this, I really do, being 48 and writing a blog called 40 Bloody 8. As I felt with 2 years to run to 50, this is why I remember it, I'd somehow come out of the youthful orbit and was heading toward burning up on impact as I entered Earth's atmosphere. Now, I know there are those older listening and those younger listening who feel a certain indifference to this whole thing and what I'm saying, but equally there are those in the Three Bears story who know what that middle bed or spoon of porridge feels and tastes like. I'm not young anymore, it seems, and I don't like it. The contract I signed, I'm sure, said you stay at 29 years old. Old enough to have stopped being a what's it starting with J, and young enough to be nowhere near requiring help with buying a rail ticket, being told your image needs radical updating, or that your birth date from the era England last won a World Cup, i.e. way too long ago, is surprising. But here's the thing I think I've started to notice, and I say this with mild reluctance. Getting older has its uses. And I don't just mean insurance. When you're young, you think experience is something that happens to other people. You're too busy rushing through everything to notice what it really means to see. But as the years pile up, you begin to collect more than just stories. You collect perspective. You learn what matters, what doesn't, and how little of it you can actually control. It plays beautifully into photography, though. When I first started, I wanted everything sharp and bright and impressive. Now I find myself drawn to the softer moments. Those gestures, the edges of things, the bits a lot of people just walk on past. Getting older, or more mature, it turns out, is just learning to see with a steadier hand. Or shakier, but steady, all at once. Stabilisation. Ha! Lovely. But anyway, I've started noticing light differently too. How it changes over the course of a day, how it sits gently on a face, how it wraps around something as simple as a mug on a table. The camera slows you down in the same way that age does. It insists you pay attention. Perhaps that's the trade-off. We lose the rush, but we gain the patience to look properly. And there's a strange relief in that. And I don't feel the need to prove anything with every frame anymore. These days, a good photograph is less about perfection and more about recognition, about seeing something honestly and pressing the button before it disappears. So yes, I suppose maturity brings with it a kind of lens correction. The focus shifts. You begin to understand that clarity isn't about how sharp something is, it's about how true it feels. And if that means I occasionally get offered help at a ticket machine or told my profile picture needs updating, so be it. I'll take that over rushing through life with my eyes half open. Or is it half closed? Besides, next time somebody leans over to help me buy a rail ticket, I might just hand them the camera instead. Here, I'll say, since you're helping, make this a good one, would you?